All right, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fanon, and in this video, we are going to be in the 147-pound division where we are still waiting on an Errol Spence Jr. and Keith Thurman fight to be announced. However, in the most recent rankings, a major change has taken place, which could put Keith Thurman in position to also be the mandatory for the WBO championship, and you know who holds that belt. Let's talk about that in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fanon, and in this video, we're going to be in the 147-pound division where there's a lot of drama, but very little fights. And that may be coming to a change because of the way that the rankings have been switched up since Jaron Ennis became the IBF interim champion, where now Keith Thurman is positioned in the top 5 of every major sanctioning body and is currently number 2 in the WBA. And seeing as there's a fight coming up between Virgil Ortiz and Amanda Stanionis, he is now the number 1 guy in position to be the mandatory for Terence Bud Crawford. Now, before I let you know what all that means and what I take from it, and then ask you to give me your opinion in the comment section, which I would ask for you to hold until we get through the video. Sometimes it's very obvious that you guys watch the video, start commenting way before the end of the video, and I'll promise you I'll get to most of the questions that you have. But before I get into that, let me welcome you back to the channel. If you're a longtime subscriber and supporter, thank you so much for your continued support. If you are new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button and support the boxing conversation that we have going on here, which we have popping every single solitary day of the week and the year. If it's not in a video, a live stream, or at the very least some shorts that we will put up on the channel. So always some good boxing conversation to come over here and have. Now let's get into this. Errol Spence Jr. and Keith Thurman have been rumored to be fighting one another at 154 pounds to defend Errol Spence's WBA, WBC, and IBF championships. Some people are upset because the fight would be at 154 and therefore none of his titles would be on the line. However, as long as Keith Thurman doesn't have an issue with it, it's really not going to make that big a difference, except for Keith Thurman, because if Keith Thurman wins, there will be a rematch clause, or Errol Spence Jr. would just keep his belts and be able to go back and handle his other mandatories, right? Which would be a very, very funny type of situation. However, there is an interesting little twist to this, because Keith Thurman, first of all, that fight has not been made yet. And Errol Spence Jr. has stated, and I've never heard him say that he's changed his mind, that he is never going to fight Keith Thurman. And the longer it takes for this fight to get announced, the more I'm wondering, okay, what is he going to do? Is he just going to go up to move up in weight and not fight anybody else? But then what happens, in the scenario where Errol Spence doesn't fight Keith Thurman, or the WBC balks and lets him fight somebody else and pushes the mandatory off? Well, guess where that puts Keith Thurman? That puts Keith Thurman in about a month and a half from being the mandatory challenger to fight Terence Crawford. And the reason that is the case is because Jaron Ennis has been removed from the WBO rankings. He was also removed from the WBA and the WBC rankings once he became a champion for the IBF. Now, some people are going to say, well, that's unfair. He's not a champion. He's a secondary belt holder, so he should still be able to be in the rankings for the other sanctioning bodies. And to that, I would say, okay, yeah, that would be nice if that was the case. Honestly, I agree with Floyd Mayweather Jr. when Floyd Mayweather Jr. says, look, man, you guys, we need to get rid of all these belts. There should be there's 4 sanctioning bodies, and since there's 4 sanctioning bodies, there should just be 4 champions. Unfortunately, that's just not the case, where you have the WBC that has who has the silver champion, the interim champion. You have the WBA that has the super champion and the WBA world champion. You also have all kind of, I think the WBO may be associated with the NABF and the different, belts that they have. So here's the problem. Whenever you get one of those belts, you become a champion in that sanctioning body. And because you're a champion in that sanctioning body and you are holding their belt, another sanctioning body cannot order you to defend that belt against someone else. So if, take for example, Jaron Ennis remained in the rankings for the WBO, and the WBO ordered a title eliminator fight, say with Alexis Rocha, they would in effect be ordering the IBF to allow Alexis Rocha to fight for their IBF interim title. Or they would have to have and that could be the case even if Alexis Rocha is not in the IBF rankings. So while it makes a lot of sense, I mean, just common sense that you would say, hold on, man, this guy's not a champion. Why are you removing him from the rankings? That's why they have to do it. Because in practice, if you, as long as you have a title, you can't be in the other ranking systems, because those ranking systems would be able to do what they wanted with another sanctioning body's belt. But anyway, you have it. I think that's real interesting turn of events, because Keith Thurman versus Terence Crawford, I think, would be a great fight for the WBO champion, and it may be pretty much the only way that you're going to get Terence Crawford to fight somebody like a Keith Thurman is if it is a mandatory fight. Now, what is the likelihood of that taking place? Not particularly high, because with the WBC, if Errol Spence Jr. doesn't defend it against Keith Thurman, the WBC could order Keith Thurman to fight somebody else for that WBC belt, and he may decide to take that route and not go through everything that you'd have to go through to get a fight with Terence Crawford, even though the Terence Crawford fight would probably be a bigger money fight, especially if it was, placed on, it could be anywhere. It could be at PBC, it could be a Golden Boy, it could be a BLK Prime. It's probably going to be a bigger fight than any of the other fights that the WBC could make for him at this point in time. There may be because I'm trying to think who's like number 3 or 4. I think it very well may be like Cody Crowley or somebody like that. But even if he did that, if he was able to get that WBC belt, then he stays at that weight class, then there is an option to have a unification with Terence Crawford. And that's something that I'm hoping for. I'm hoping to see. I wasn't happy with what took place with, Terence Crawford and the Errol Spence Jr. negotiations. But at the same time, Terence Crawford's an excellent fighter, and he's very fun to watch. And he's definitely one of the best fighters in boxing. So all of the laid aside the fact that he definitely ducked Errol Spence, he's still somebody that I want to see fight and would love to see a fight like this pan out, and hopefully it can. But anyway, that's my take on the matter. Just wanted to update you on those ranking shifts, and you can let me know what you think in the comment section. Thank you so much for your continued support for the channel, and with that, I'm out.